This week, we will hit the 100-day mark of Donald Trump's presidency. If you can't believe how quickly time has flown by, that's not at all how I feel. But if that's how you feel, don't worry, everyone. There are only 1,361 days to go of this journey. Now, the first 100 days, though, is often the high watermark of a presidency. You're fresh off a political win, you have momentum, you can finally try to implement the plans you talked about on the campaign trail. You're still in a sort of honeymoon phase of your presidency, for most presidents. It's a time when the American people are most willing to extend some benefit of the doubt of what you're going to do. But as we approach the end of Trump's first 100 days, it seems he was pretty quick to squander whatever goodwill he came in with. And that's not just me saying it. I mean, poll after poll after poll, and I literally mean there's so many of them, is making that all perfectly clear. There was a new NBC News poll out just this morning that shows Trump's favorability is at just 45%. Now, Fox News poll put his approval a point lower at 44%, which, by the way, is the lowest rating that Fox has ever measured for any president at this point in their term. And those weren't even the worst numbers Trump saw this week. A Washington Post, ABC News poll showed his approval rating at just 39%. And then there are the numbers on the specific issues, and this is where I think it gets very interesting, like these from the New York Times. Trump's underwater by 4 points on immigration, an issue that typically had been his strength. He's underwater by 8 points on managing the federal government, underwater by 11 points on trade, by 12 points on the economy, by 14 points on foreign conflicts, underwater by 21 points on his handling of the war between Russia and Ukraine, and he's underwater by 21 points on his handling of the case involving Kilmar Obrega Garcia. And I think what we're seeing here very clearly is just how badly Donald Trump overplayed his hand. Part of the reason he overplayed his hand is because of his completely warped view of what the outcome in November meant. I mean, you might remember in the weeks and months following the election, Donald Trump and his allies claimed he had a historic mandate to basically do whatever he wanted.
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate.
They're just upset, they're desperate, they're humiliated, they're embarrassed. But Donald Trump has a mandate.
The president-elect clearly buoyed by his victory, telling me in our conversation today that he believes he has a, quote, mandate.
Donald Trump has a mandate. He has the greatest presidential mandate probably since Reagan in 1984.
The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades.
Now, no matter how many times he or people around him say it, he didn't even win a majority of the vote. And that is just a fact. And yet Donald Trump thought he had a mandate to start a trade war. He thought he had a mandate to pick people like Pete Hegseth for his cabinet to oversee the Defense Department. He thought he had a mandate to effectively kidnap legal residents and ship them off to foreign prisons. But he never did. And now in poll after poll after poll, the American people are basically telling the president that they are not okay with any of this. I mean, in that New York Times poll that I mentioned, by a wide margin, voters think Trump has simply gone too far. 66% of voters across the country, 2/3 of the electorate, describe Trump's first term in office for this 100 days as chaotic. And 59% described it as scary. So too far, chaotic, scary. Not the words you want in your first 100 days, by the way, but it all sounds kind of right. It's not hard to see why the public feels that way either, especially since the country is now facing so many crises of Trump's own making. I mean, just consider his delusional trade policy. Trump promised that punishing tariffs would force countries like China to negotiate better deals. And yet China's basically called his bluff. In an interview with Time magazine this week, Trump claimed that his administration was in talks with China, even saying that President Xi had called him personally. But in a pretty embarrassing twist, to be honest, China said that actually no, negotiators those haven't taken place, and no talks are underway. They effectively suggested that Trump was misleading the public. So it seems pretty clear Trump has gotten the results. He hasn't gotten the results he was hoping for. And that may explain why he was so vague late this week when he was pressed for more details on all of it.
Mr. President, you said that you have spoken to President Xi. When did that happen? China says it hasn't happened.
I spoke to him numerous times.
You said you spoke with President Xi. Have you spoken to him since the tariffs? When did you last
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times.
Time magazine that President Xi called you. When did that happen, and what did you discuss?
I'll let you know at the appropriate time. Let's see if we can make a deal.
I mean, that's all a little awkward to watch, but it's also not a one-off. I mean, it's the latest in a series of reality checks for this administration when it comes to their on-again, off-again tariffs. That also includes warnings from senior executives from Target and Walmart and other large American retailers that consumers would see price surges and empty shelves for some imported goods within a few weeks. So given the economic uncertainty that Trump is seemingly single-handedly creating, it's no surprise most Americans think he has gone too far. But the chaos is, of course, again, it's a feature. It's not a bug. It's not a one-off. I mean, just consider the dysfunction at the Pentagon, thanks to, of course, Trump's handpicked Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. We already know Hegseth showed a complete lack of judgment when he shared the plans for a pending military strike on the commercial messaging app Signal. But now, new reporting this week reveals that he created even more security vulnerabilities. The Associated Press reported that Hegseth had a personal internet connection installed in his office so that he could bypass the Pentagon's security protections to use Signal on his personal computer. The New York Times also revealed that Hegseth's personal phone number, the same one that he used for all those Signal chats, was publicly available on the internet. I mean, it's pretty clear that this storyline isn't exactly getting any better for Hegseth. But it's also about the way he's handled himself since all this news came to light. Two officials familiar with the situation tell NBC News Hegseth's behavior has become erratic, and he seems increasingly insecure about his job and standing in the administration, leading him to frequently reinforce to staff that he can't allow himself to be fired. Based on how he defended himself earlier this week in a visit to his old stomping grounds at Fox and Friends, erratic seems, well, fairly accurate.
I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. When you dismiss people who you believe are leaking classified information, and again, why would it surprise anybody, Brian, if those very same people keep leaking to the very same reporters whatever information they think they can have to try to sabotage the agenda of the president or the secretary? So once a leaker, always a leaker, often a leaker. Disgruntled former employees are peddling things to try to save their ass. We haven't backed down. See, here's the thing. A lot of people come to Washington and they just play the game. And it's you punch their ticket and get along to go along and, you know, start doing Meet the Press and go into the Council on Foreign Relations and spending time with all the new cocktail sipping crowd. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because President Trump asked me to bring warfighting back to the Pentagon every single day. Right. That is our focus.
He often thinks when he talks louder that people are going to listen to him more. I've noticed this is a trend. But I mean, that's the kind of unhinged and accusatory behavior that's not just a bad look for the Secretary of Defense. It obviously is. It's also a distraction from what the work he should be doing. The Pentagon does a lot. And it's a disservice, of course, to the men and women who serve. They deserve steady leadership at the Pentagon. So given all the disarray at the Department of Defense, is it, I mean, really any wonder that a majority of Americans view this administration as being chaotic? It seems chaotic. He seemed chaotic in that interview. So this administration is in some deep holes right now, obviously, across the government. When Donald Trump is in a hole, his instinct is often to keep digging. When it seems like he's pushed too far, he will almost always try to push things even farther. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now on Donald Trump's signature issue, immigration. Sure, lots of Americans voted for this guy, many did, because they thought he would secure the border. But what we've seen is something entirely different. Instead, we've seen his administration mistakenly ship a Maryland man with protected status to El Salvador and then refuse to bring him back. Instead, we're hearing Trump muse aloud about shipping American citizens to foreign prisons. Instead, we're seeing headlines about a Trump-appointed judge saying a 2-year-old American citizen was just deported with no meaningful due process. Instead, we're seeing headlines about a judge being arrested for allegedly obstructing immigration agents. The bad news is he's trying a lot of stuff that is scary, and he is. The bad news is there is incompetence and chaos across the federal government, I mean, clearly. But as we approach the end of this first 100 days, the good news is the American people seem to be paying attention to what's happening. And they do not seem to like what they see. I wonder why.